Stephen Mbide, another gentleman doing the most on Morning at NTV, hailing in from Nakawa, trying to paint a picture of how our roads are looking. Please do not forget, Ivan Walanyolo, another correspondent of ours who largely has Entebbe on hold. Yes, and our correspondents all over the country. We do appreciate the good work that you are advancing on this very show. Morning at NTV. We are still talking about the two-day online affair that we are anticipating to take center stage tomorrow. Yes, the Uganda Bankers Conference. It is the fourth annual virtual conference that is going to be taking center stage. The keynote speaker is going to be Dr. Patrick Njoroge, the Governor Central Bank of Kenya, trying to paint the success story of the Kenyans and how they made the transformational shift to the digital economy space. But how has COVID-19 affected the banking sector? Matthias Matanda is still here to Matthias Katamba is still here to actually expand more on this conversation. Very good morning once again, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's talk about how COVID-19 has affected the banking sector. Break it down for us.
So I think the banking sector, just like any sector, is a commercial sector in the country. So all sectors have been affected differently. Some have been affected much more different than others. If you look at hospitality, tourism, transport, etc. The banking industry kind of sits at the center of things because we provide private sector credit, particularly to support the growth of businesses across the country. So if you look at the private sector is financed largely by the banking sector. And so if the private sector is affected,
the SMEs,
the SMEs, the large commercial corporates, the medium scale SMEs, the much smaller entities, everybody who is economically active that needs scale is supported by the banking sector. So when their businesses are suffering, the buck stops at the banks. So what we've done is we've been hugely restructuring facilities, giving people room to work through this period. And after, you know,
how have you been able to help these SMEs and small and medium-sized enterprises?
So for those that have facilities, we've largely been restructuring those facilities, giving them time to work through the pandemic period. That means delaying payments, giving them grace periods. Some that need to retool their businesses, recalibrate their businesses have been coming for additional support, facilities, etc. We provide advice, lots of advice in terms of how businesses need to work through this period. On the one hand, we continue to make sure that they can do their payments even when they are largely working in a different mode through our online channels, etc. So we're there full square for the businesses.
The inter-district travel has indeed affected the credit rating of many of these businesses. I mean, if I've been battered by the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, it means my credit rating has actually gone down. How dire is this situation for many of our businesses?
I mean, it's not so much credit rating. So the credit rating of the business before the pandemic is the prevailing credit rating today.
Oh, that's what you're focusing on.
Yeah, of course, because it's a relationship. And these are long-term relationships. We know how you operated before the pandemic, and we have a good picture of how the pandemic has affected your business. And because we have that picture, we work very closely with you to understand how your business and how you're planning to work through the period and how we can support you beyond that into recovery.
Let's talk about the banking sector digitalization trends. What do they look like in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic?
So I think if you just look at it, banks over the last 10, 15 years have invested significantly in technology.
I hear you.
If there's any sector that has focused on investment in technology, it's the banking sector. And a lot of this has come to pay off during this period because we can ensure continuity through our systems to ensure that we make services available to customers.
Yes.
But tomorrow we are going to be having Dr. Njoroge, for instance, and we will learn about not just what the trends are, but what has actually happened in Kenya and how did they do it so well. But also during the course of today and tomorrow, we'll be looking at the emerging trends, especially in the payment space, because as you know, as a result of this pandemic, changes are not only happening here in Uganda, but across the world. The full
emerging trends in the payment space. How so? Break that down for us.
Because you see, today the world is borderless, and Whereas in the past it was largely cards, payments through cards, now it's through different channels, mobile for instance. You imagine a globally connected world on the mobile phone with devices in people's hands.
Indeed.
That's where the trends are going, and a lot of the conversations tomorrow will pick up those trends and kind of cross-reference them from the different speakers.
Don't you think taxes being instituted like the 12% tax on data might go a long way in curtailing this bid of actually ensuring that we make a shift to the digital economy space?
I think one of the things we've seen with technology is that possibilities, there are always possibilities amidst all the challenges.
All right.
So developers will probably find ways to have applications that utilize less bandwidth, etc., so that the versatility and the agility of the service provision continues irrespective of how the environment changes. Yeah.
I hear you. What else?
I think so. My main thing would be to encourage the public to join in the conversation. Previous conferences were physical conferences, would be at the Kampala Serena here. The opportunity we have with this conference is that it's an online conference and registration is free. And everybody is welcome to join into the conversation. I believe that everybody is a stakeholder in the financial sector. And as we all think and look towards recovery post-pandemic and how the new normal is going to be, we need not just focus on how our businesses have been affected, but how we can benefit from the trends, the emerging trends of technology and the possibilities provided by the financial sector. So I therefore believe that everybody is a stakeholder. Indeed. Everybody who is economically active is a stakeholder, and this conference is targeted towards
What about the challenges that have hampered your efforts to actually ensure that we make that shift to the digital or digitalization of this industry? What are some of those challenges?
I think the biggest challenge would have been acceptance. But today technology and the use of mobile is widely accepted. The other challenge would have been, creating a level playing field and regulation and security and all these things, these sort of things. And you can clearly see that with the active involvement of the central bank today, technologically driven payments are in a much better space. The biggest challenge would be cyber security. And that's one of the topics that will be covered during the course of this two-day conference. The challenges that come with cybersecurity, identity theft, etc., and all those sorts of things. And there's a lot of work being done in the background to address this and make this seamless as you transact at the front end. So while you're transacting at the front end, you're being taken care of with all kinds of applications at the back, just to make sure that financial transactions are secure.
Cyber attacks.
Yes.
How are you prepared for these cyber attacks?
I think that anybody today playing in the digital space, even NTV, for instance, must be prepared for the challenge of security that comes with the increased use of technology. So the banking system has invested heavily in technology to counter attacks. So the cyber defenses of financial institutions are robust. But also...
General Salim Saleh was a victim. That's why I'm bringing it up. They tried to access his bank using an email, a simple email. And I was like, wow, this is real fragile.
Well, and it's all also it's about users also.
Indeed.
So every attack will typically start with a user. That's why we do lots of sensitization for you to just be aware of phishing attacks. Romeo, if someone sent you an email that looks enticing, make a promise to you, don't click on it, don't open it, because that could be the start of throwing malware into your system. And if somebody asks you to provide your national ID and details and all of this, don't. Because you need to just check the authenticity of.
So the individual is the first line of defense.
That's the first line of defense.
Indeed.
Yes.
So we've also harnessed some opportunities in the digital space. We have. So let's also shine a light on some of those opportunities and how we can harness them. So
I think that you will have seen, for instance, in Uganda today, with the National Payment Systems Act, you see telecom providers are also players in the financial sector now. Fintechs are also players in the financial sector now. Romeo, if you're a developer and you think that you can put together something that in the back of your garage,
yes,
that can not only make you money but make a difference and solve somebody's problems financially, banks are willing to talk with you. To understand how that technology can be harnessed, developed, what kind of partnership there can be. So this is all open.
All right, you're supporting innovations, technological innovations.
Absolutely.
I love that.
And just working and operating in an agile way. I mean, your technology doesn't have to be 100% complete, but there are bits and pieces of it that can be utilized today, and you can be able to work with the financial institution to scale it further. And not to mention to provide support for you to make that possible.
Indeed. Yeah. So, of course, in reference to your selection of the speaker, that is Dr. Patrick Njoroge, the Governor Central Bank of Kenya, we'd like to know what you anticipate from the Kenyan banking sector as far as learnings are concerned. What do we anticipate to learn from the Kenyans?
So I think from our part of the world, if you look at Eastern Central Africa to a large extent, I think Kenya is where most of the innovation in the digital space and in terms of financial services has happened. If you look at the initial leaps of Safaricom and M-Pesa and how that has been integrated with financial institutions and how that has made it easy for Kenyans in many ways, there's lots of things that we can learn. The amount of incubation happening with global players in the Kenyan space, the number of new developments, small fintechs that have been able to scale up across the spectrum of the financial services sector. So we look forward to just hearing how they've done it, what they've been able to achieve, how this has been able to drive inclusion, how lives have been changed, and how the ordinary Kenyan has benefited.
Indeed. How does the digitalization of this banking industry drive inclusion, financial inclusion?
As you know, Romeo, one of the biggest impediments to financial inclusion is infrastructure.
Indeed.
So if you were to go and open up the countryside, for example, to provide services, you have to go through a multitude of things without technology. You have to think about the road network. You have to think about how people move from the workplace to the financial institution. You have to think about how cash is moved, etc., and all sorts of things, how security is done, physical, and all that. Technology removes all those barriers, and so makes financial inclusion much easier because as we speak today, the utilization of mobile phones, even in the deepest, most remote areas in the country, is now growing. People have public charging points, etc. The coverage by the mobile network operators is countrywide pretty much for both voice and data. And so riding off the back of that with innovative solutions that can provide different solutions, not just on the savings side, but on provision of microcredit, for instance, to help people out of poverty. So these are important things, and the conversation is going to be really rich.
And it is going to be really rich because you talked about something that is still, making rounds within my head. You said acceptance is going to be key, meaning the people in the value chain, the people within this industry have to accept technology as a trend that we should be maximizing on. Now, basing on that analogy, are people accepting this? Are they embracing it? Have you noticed a shift whereby people are not physically going to these banking institutions and are employing more of the online services, trying to reach out to the banks?
Oh, without a doubt, it's about convenience. So your typical branch is very much for higher value transactions and value-adding services, advisory, etc., the sort of things that someone will need to have contact with a human being for. But the acceptance of digital payments is huge. That's why you will not worry when you send money to your grandmother in the village on the phone. And you will have an acknowledgement that she has received it. And with the mobile applications of financial institutions today, you get real-time acknowledgement of transactions, etc. And I think, generally speaking, digital has been largely accepted in this country, and not just in this country, in the region.
Indeed, and we look forward to this two-day online affair that is going to be taking center stage starting on Tuesday, the 27th of July. Dr. Patrick Njoroge, the Central Bank of Kenya governor, shall be making his way to Uganda, or it shall be via Zoom?
It will be, again, digital.
Online,
yes.
Online discussion. Thank you very much, Mr. Matthias Katamba, for making the way to speak to us right here in Morning at NTV.
Thank you very much.
Rashul Adidi is on the line, and Mr. Rashul Adidi is going to give us an update on the nurses or medical workers who were clobbered, yes, by members